This video will be showing tips and hints on the installation of siderlock safety on a Glock pistol. We'll not be getting into the disassembly and reassembly of the Glock pistol, as you can reference that on other videos, but focus mostly today on this video on the installation of the siderlock. On today's video, we'll be referencing the trigger assembly, the trigger pad or finger pad, the trigger bar, the siderlock itself with a siderlock button on the safety button right here, the punch tool that comes with the siderlock, and of course the Glock tool. To install the siderlock, we must first remove the OEM trigger pad from the trigger assembly and away from the trigger bar. Now, you'll notice that there are two pins on the trigger pad. One, the lower pin, which the safety pivots on, and you can see which one it is, and then the upper middle type pin, which is closer to the trigger pin hole right here. This is the pin we want to remove that the trigger bar pivots on. And what I do is I use a roll of tape, then I use the punch that was supplied, place it on this pin, and remove it. Notice that you're probably going to destroy this trigger pad. This one's not too bad, but it's not going to be reusable. You're left with the trigger bar. In the lower part of the trigger bar, this is the hole with a pin right here on the siderlock. This pin will go through this hole, and we're going to use the punch that came with the siderlock. We're going to use it as a guide pin. Now, on the siderlock, again, you don't want to worry about this pin here where the safety pivots, but we're going to push this other pin where the bar is going to be inserted onto just enough out of the way of this slot that the trigger bar is going to slide down into. Don't push the pin all the way out, but just partially. And I push it out, and you can look in here in the light and you can see where the pin is, and push it out far enough that you can get the bar in there. Pin here, not all the way out. And what we're going to do is I'm going to reassemble this in a second and show you, but what I want to do is I'm going to push this bar in here like so, and I'm going to find that hole, and I can see that hole down in there, and I'm going to use this as a guide pin to find that hole and lock that in. It's going to make it much easier to install. Okay? Now, the other thing you want to remember is to work with the safety in the off position. Makes it much easier to manipulate the siderlock. Okay, insert the siderlock up into the Glock pistol, much in this position where the hole is about right here. And then take your bar and slide down in there until you can see that hole lining up. Then use the pin as a guide, the punch as a guide pin, and lock it in. I've got it locked in right there. Now, notice that I just put it in these fingers here, and I flip the whole thing over, and I'm going to push the pin out this way. I'm going to push the pin this way, and therefore pushing the guide pin out of the way, and I'm installed. Make sure that this pin is nice and flush here and is not sticking out on either side. Keep it in the disengaged position. Bring the trigger bar up to this position here. Prepare your trigger housing with its spring. Now I come from the side. Spring is in, housing is on, and you're in. Reassemble. I won't put the I will not put the slide stop back in. For the sake of this video. Push in, get in, use a pin. I use a pin as a guide pin. The punch is as a guide pin. Get it all lined up, and in it goes. Punches make good guide pins. Then we'll reassemble and test.